Today, we return to the gift that keeps on giving. I'm referring, of course, to the Flat Earth community. And whenever I post something about Flat Earth, I get a lot of negative feedback. So if you're watching this and you are a Flat Earther, here's a couple of things. First off, no one is forcing you to watch this video. This isn't mind control by NASA or the Freemasons or the Illuminati. Secondly, whenever someone posts a video pointing out how ridiculous the Flat Earth model is, we're hoping that a few of you may see sense. Because central to the Flat Earth model is the idea that gravity doesn't exist. Apparently, things just fall down. Now, it's hard to argue with a scientific model such as that. Now, we all know the story of how Isaac Newton discovered gravity, which is now a scientific fact. He said that he watched an apple fall from the tree and wondered why do objects fall to Earth rather than floating upwards or just staying where they are. Now, in truth, that was entirely made up. He said that during an interview. But now there's a Flat Earth theory onto why he made up that story, because apparently Isaac Newton was a Satanist, hiding us from God's truth. Now, it's worth pointing out that many Flat Earthers are also fundamentalist Christians. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. As far as the world's religions go, Christianity, I believe, is among the best of them. I mean, because we all know there are certain people who practice Islam who say Islam is a religion of peace and then behead or blow up anyone that disagrees with them. I'm going off on a tangent here, but last year I was walking through town. There was a guy with a copy of the Quran screaming at passers-by, "This is a religion of peace!" And I thought, yes mate, you're really selling that. Anyway, so why did Newton make up this story? Well, apparently the apple falling from the tree is a metaphor for Eve taking the fruit in the Garden of Eden, picking an apple as it were. Now, there are a number of problems with this idea. Chiefly is that although many Western painters have depicted Adam and Eve by an apple tree, the word apple doesn't appear in the Bible in that story. That is the Hebrew word for fruit, which can mean grapes, figs or citrus fruits, not apples. And you would have thought, with Isaac Newton being a hardline Satanist, that he would have known that. Other things that Flat Earthers can't get their head around gravity. I watched a video last week of a guy smoking, saying if gravity exists, then why is it that the smoke is travelling upwards? And I can explain that. What's happening there, Flat Earthers, is your man is standing on the Earth being held in place by the force of gravity. The smoke is greater than the force of gravity, employing some very, very simple thermodynamics. Another one I've seen Flat Earthers argue about, or present an argument for, is that they say, well, how come an aeroplane, actually they don't say aeroplane, they say airplane because they're almost always American. How can an airplane fly when they weigh hundreds of tons if gravity exists? Well, what's happening there, and I'm not a scientist, is the aircraft is using the thrust from its engines and the lift generated by the wings to overcome the force of gravity. I mean, if either of those forces suddenly goes away, the plane's coming down very quickly. Another thing that I hear Flat Earthers say is that NASA is covering up that the Earth is flat. So let's say that they are. What about every other country with any form of space program? Britain, France, Russia, India, China, are they all in on it? Because I'm fairly certain that if NASA knew the Earth was flat, with America being a Christian country, they'd bring that up. I mean, that place is full of Bible-thumping cousin fuckers down in certain states. And also, here's the biggest reason that you know that the Earth is round and not flat. President Trump would have tweeted about it 30 seconds after being sworn into office. The Earth is flat. Obama lied to you, bigly. And I don't understand why it is certain religious people can't also accept aspects of science. I mean, if you read the book of Genesis, where God is creating the heaven and the earth, separating the land from the sea, creatures of the sea, the land, and it goes on, and then the last thing that turns up is us, and we promptly fuck everything up. If you read through that sequence of events, it pretty much mirrors the theory of evolution. And what about the Big Bang? This idea that the universe is constantly expanding. Who came up with that theory? It was a man called Georges Lemaitre, I think he was, and he came up with that in 1927, and he was a Belgian Catholic priest. Does any of that make sense, flat earthers? Why am I pretending that any flat earther is still going to be here at this point of the video? They're at home pouring water over a ball to prove that water can't stick to a globe, blissfully unaware the reason it won't stick is it's under the influence of fucking gravity.